Dale Earnhardt Jr. shared his thoughts about what happened between Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill following the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Jr. partook in the press conference for the winner, Justin Allgaier, given he is the team owner of Allgaier's car, Junior Motorsports. But before we get to that, we will go back and take a look at what happened in those final laps of the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Martinsville. This video starts a little bit after the restart. We don't get to see Austin Hill kind of ride up Sheldon Creed, but we do get to see kind of the aftermath of that, where Creed kind of ducks in behind Austin Hill as they are going into the turn. So let's take a look at this here just to get our memories refreshed. See here, Sheldon Creed ducks in right behind Austin Hill, gives him a little tap. Doesn't really get a good run going through the corner there. Hill's able to continue to hold on to the lead. Allgaier bounces off the outside wall there. Hill then drives it in really hard, pushes Hill up the track, is able to get beside of him, runs him really up high, draws even with him. They drag race down the straightaway there. They bang doors, and Creed gets a good run there, and then he just kind of stops, and Hill just bangs right into him, causes a massive melee. Creed and Allgaier drag race to the end, and Allgaier is able to take it. We did get an explanation from Creed after the race that he said he got stuck in some oil, and that is why he had trouble coming off the corner there. He said he bogged it down, and that's why he just didn't have that corner off speed going into the straightaway that he had previously. There was a huge wreck before this where they laid it down a ton of speedy drag because there was a ton of oil on the track. And it took them almost 20 minutes to get it fully ready to go. So that is what happened. Allgaier won. And then obviously there was a lot of post-race drama as well. You had Andy Petrie coming up to Sheldon Creed, kind of berating him. You had Richard Childress's comments calling Sheldon Creed a stupid driver. So there was a lot of craziness that happened after the race, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. shared his thoughts when he was questioned by Bob Pockris, Fox Sports reporter. So let's take a listen to what Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to say.
If you were in charge of RCR, how do you handle that? Or did you view anything of that as over the line, or when you're racing to get in, is there really almost no line in those situations?
Yeah.
All right, so I do want to applaud Bob Pockris because I think this is a great question. I'm glad that he asked Junior about this. And Junior's probably been in a similar situation with Junior Motorsports and so many cars competing for those playoff spots and stuff like that. So this is an interesting question because it's something that Junior probably has thought about in the past, and he's clearly thinking about it after this race.
I don't know what you do. I was sitting there thinking about that, talking about that in those final handful of laps. You got two sets of teammates sitting there with Gibbs and RCR, and you've got, arguably two or three of those guys out of that group that have to win. And what do you expect them to do, right? I can understand anybody. I can understand Richard or Austin or Creed's frustration, but they are doing what they have to do to win. And
so I do want to stop it there. I don't think they actually did what they needed to do to win. I actually thought we saw a pretty respectful race, especially out of Sheldon Creed. And Creed rightfully pointed out at the end of the race that he could have dumped Austin Hill if he wanted to, similar to how we saw Ty Gibbs do that last year during the playoff race. So they could have been way more aggressive and done something like that. So I actually thought the racing was really, really good. I actually thought they were racing really hard, and they didn't actually dump each other or wreck each other until the very end there, where clearly Creed got slowed down going into the corner, and Hill ran into the back of them, and they got spun out by John Hunter Nemechek.
It's tough. It's hard to. It's the playoffs and the elimination races and everything puts us in those situations that we've never been in before with teammates. And you got a car capable of winning the race, but your teammate needs this, and another one needs that, and you can't really go out and just have an objective of your own, an agenda of your own. And it's not unfortunate is not the right word, but it just puts us in unique situations now that we never really watched people experience or been a part of before. And I wouldn't have wanted to be Richard at the end of that deal, and I certainly wouldn't have wanted him. I guess when it's getting ready to have that restart, I didn't envy his position, and I certainly don't envy it now. But I listened to Creed's post-race interview, and I can't argue with anything he said. You know, he moved him. We all know that short tracks, you know, using the bumper to move people out of the way is pretty much fair game. He allowed Austin.
He's right. It is. That's what you see every Friday, Saturday night short track racing. I see it at my local track at Dominion Raceway. When I'm watching on Flow Racing, you see it at Stafford. You even see the modifieds do it. They have those big, huge bumpers. They're not afraid to get in there, use the bumper, give them a shot in the back, push them up the track when they're getting ready to dive into the corner, get them off their line and stuff like that. So you see that at all levels in short track racing. You even see it in the little bandoleros and the legends where they'll try and give a little bit of a bumper. Obviously, those are a little bit harder to move, and you don't want to really move them that much. Obviously, those guys are, especially with the bandoleros, they're still kind of learning, young drivers and stuff like that. But that is what you see in short track racing, and that is kind of fair game. It's not like, again, it's not like Creed dumped him like he could have.
A chance to race. He didn't send him into the wall. He didn't knock him back to sixth. He just got him up off the bottom, and both of those guys did a little bit of that all night, you know. I didn't see anything just obviously blatant or man, that's totally uncalled for. I didn't see really any of that. But you're not going to have that go on and not be frustrated either way. So, you know, you got a guy leaving. There's some dynamics there that are, their feelings are hurt or what have you. And Creed, you know, with Creed moving on, or Richard Childress and them moving on from Creed, however you want to look at it. So, and you got a driver in Austin Hill that they really believe in and want him to be part of their long-term future, you know. And Austin Hill, I talked to him on my podcast this week. He talked about how he was so frustrated so many times. He was going to go to Martinsville and wasn't going to allow that to happen again. And he you know, and that goes down. So, tough situation for them to be in, and
I agree to an extent. I think that you can have that frustration, but I do think that there is a case where you should be professional about it. You also need to recognize what exactly happened. And I don't think Richard Childress was very professional about it when he's calling Sheldon Creed stupid. I don't think that Austin Hill was very professional about it either when he's mockingly clapping at the Sheldon Creed crew. Those are the people that I would assume you're still going to be working with moving into the future. And you probably work with them anyways. I'm not sure how Richard Childress sets up his race teams, whether they're kind of isolated or if they are very collaborative or like that. So I'm not really sure how that works, but you would think you would be working with those guys pretty much week in and week out, day in and day out. So that just seemed just really unprofessional. So I do think there is room to criticize what Richard Childress and Austin Hill did. I'm not sure if Dale Jr. knows about any of that stuff at this point when he's giving this interview. Again, this is post-race, so he might not have seen the headlines and anything like that about what Richard Childress said or saw how Austin Hill reacted. He might have seen Austin Hill on pit road, but I don't know. He might have just been going to the victory lane to congratulate Allgaier and celebrating that. So it's hard to know how much he knows at this point, but obviously, being a quarterback here, I definitely think there is room to criticize them for how they acted following the race.
When you rate,
but I just want to be clear: you can still be frustrated, but you also need to be able to know how to handle that frustration. And obviously, that's something that you learn, and it can be difficult sometimes. And sometimes you do make mistakes, so that's a possibility too.
I'll say this, and this was certainly something I experienced earlier in the year. When you put fast race cars on the racetrack, they're going to run up front, and they're going to run into each other. And we got young guys out there trying to make a name for themselves. They're not veterans. They're not old teammates that have been buddies for decades. They're young guys that don't really know each other that well, and they don't have a loyalty to each other. And that's what the Xfinity Series and Truck Series is about. You got these guys that come in and out of these cars in brief periods, and so yeah, they're gonna bounce into each other and piss each other off, and you're gonna have conversations on Mondays and Tuesdays that aren't fun to try to keep it going in the right direction, and that's just part of it.
I really like that last part there. I'm not sure how many of you guys watch hockey, but I do watch hockey as well. And you have preseason games, like you can talk NFL too. When you have these preseason games, you have a lot of these young rookies that are trying to make the team. They don't want to get cut, and they give it their all out. And that's kind of an interesting analogy that I feel like Junior kind of made there. Obviously, he didn't talk about other sports, but he talked about how you have these guys that are really trying to make their name in the Xfinity and the Truck Series because they want to get that next ride. In the Truck Series, you usually want to go and get that next Xfinity ride, and then in the Xfinity ride, you're wanting to get that Cup ride, and that's kind of the how it goes up in NASCAR. So it's the same thing. You have like these guys that maybe they're playing on a little minor league team or something like that, and they're trying to make a name. They're trying to do that, and short track racing, it's a great way to make a name, especially when you're out there racing for the win and you're beating and banging and you're in close quarters and your tempers are going to be flared. You're going to get hot. And it made for some exciting racing, and it's drama that we like, but it's also something that that the drivers are going to learn from. They are, as he said, they're going to have tough conversations afterwards. I can't imagine what the conversations were at Richard Childress Racing between Creed and Austin Hill, if they even had any conversations yet, or how that dynamic went, especially because you have something where Creed's kind of on the way out already. He's moving over to Joe Gibbs next year, whereas Hill is still there at RCR. So there's an interesting dynamic going on there too, and I really like Junior's perspective on that. But let me know what you think. What do you make of Dale Jr.'s comments here? Do you think he was a little bit, do you think he made some really good comments? Did you like what he said? Or do you think he was riding in the middle too much there? Do you think he should have defended Creed a little bit more? Do you think he should have maybe criticized Creed a little bit more? Do you think he should have criticized Richard Childress a little bit more? Or maybe defended him a little bit more? Let me know what you think in the comments below.